Thanks for coming here. If you can indulge me for just a second, we're going to show this quick video here. Well, maybe this will work, maybe it won't.
Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife.
All right, this was actually created in 1962. There was 26 original episodes of the Jetsons. Now this was intended to portray life in 2062, 100 years in the future. Now this is the part that I didn't realize. So we were approached by the Arconic Corporation, a spin-off of Alcoa Aluminum, and they were asking me the question of if we were going to recreate the intro to the Jetsons based on what we know about life in 2062, how would we go about doing that? And they hired Hollywood film director Justin Lin, and there was actually 4 of us involved in a brainstorming session to try to come up with ideas on how we'd portray life in 2062. So I'd like to show you what we came up with here.
Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife.
See, the Arconic Corporation decided that they wanted to use this as setting themselves up and being a cutting-edge company. They wanted to be on the cutting edge of the future. And so I thought it was kind of a brilliant strategy for doing this, leveraging the Jetsons. But so thinking about the future is very hard. We spend a lot of time wrestling with these ideas, but it's like a muscle in our brain that doesn't get exercised very much. For most of us, thinking about the future ends up being, what are we going to have for dinner tonight, or how do we make our numbers this quarter? So we end up being a very backward-looking society. We're backward-looking because it's just human nature. See, we've all personally experienced the past. When we look around us, we see evidence of the past all around us. All information that we come into contact with is essentially history. So the past is very knowable, but we're going to be spending the rest of our lives in the future. So it's almost as if we're walking backwards into the future. As a futurist, my job is to help turn people around, to give them some idea what the future might hold. So how does the future get created? Well, the future gets created in the minds of everybody around us. We all help and participate in creating the future. But people make decisions today based on their understanding of what the future holds. So I use this phrase a lot: the future creates the present. This is just the opposite of what most people think. Most people think of what we're doing today is going to create the future, but from a little different perspective. It's these images that we hold in our head determine our actions today. So here's the key thing. If we change someone's vision of the future, we change the way they make decisions today. So that's my promise to you. before you leave here, I'm going to change your vision of the future, and you'll walk out of here making different decisions. Please hold my feet to the fire if I don't do that, okay? We'll try harder. I get asked a lot, though, if I have a crystal ball. Yes, I do have a crystal ball. It was sitting around at home, and my wife says, why don't you just take this to the office? It's just collecting dust. So I put it in the car, and I was driving down the road, and it was no more than about 4 or 5 minutes down the road. I looked over, and I saw that my crystal ball had started to fire on the seat next to me. Now, this is Colorado sunshine. This is a giant lens. It's like Boy Scouts 101. I should have known better. I was able to put the fire out, and luckily it didn't cause too much damage. But then I had this massive revelation, and the revelation obviously came from my crystal ball. It was that newspaper headline the next day was going to say, Futurist killed by his own crystal ball. And he didn't see it coming. It's like the ultimate insult. Yeah, so that's my disclaimer. I don't see everything. Larry Page says that the main reasons companies fail is because they miss the future. I happen to agree with that. A lot of companies are getting blindsided by the future. Too many things happening that they just didn't anticipate. Now, a lot of the technologies displayed in the Jetsons are what I refer to as catalytic innovation. Catalytic innovation is different than the disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation disrupts existing industries, causing us to do more with less. Catalytic innovation creates entire new industries. In the past, catalytic innovation created things like electricity, automobiles, airplanes, telephones, photographs. Each of these went on to create multi-billion, multi-trillion-dollar industries. But here's the thing. All industries are a bell curve. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yes, all industries end. Over the next 1,000 years, every industry we have today will have gone away and been replaced multiple times. Here's the other critical thing, that most industries today, the most profitable ones out there, end up being in the second half of the bell curve. They're constantly having to do more with less. If we look at the steel industry today, the peak employment in the steel industry was back in the 1980s, but we're producing far more steel today than ever before. The projections are that we'll run into the peak demand for steel somewhere around 2024, give or take a few years. That's when we develop synthetic materials that start to replace our need for steel. So the peak employment in an industry actually ends up being a lead indicator as to somewhere in the future the overall demand for that goods or service will start to decline. Now, one comment, one prediction I made in 2012 that I get quoted on in media all over the world, newspapers, magazines, TV stations, is that by 2030, over 2 billion jobs are going to disappear. Now, when I made this prediction, it wasn't intended to be a doom or gloom statement. It wasn't intended to say we're going to have 2 billion people unemployed in the world. It was intended to be a wake-up call that we're going to have to create jobs at a faster rate than ever before. This is what I refer to as the level problem. Now, most of us have this tool in our garage. We straighten pictures with it. We do carpentry work with it. But once we download a level app, then we don't have the need for that tool. A lot of us don't. That means we don't have to have so many people making the aluminum frame or making the glass bulbs or doing the assembly work, the shipping, the receiving, the retail stores that are selling it. Every time somebody downloads a mobile app, it eliminates a piece of a job. It's a very tiny piece. But when we're downloading billions upon billions of mobile apps, we're eliminating lots of jobs. Oxford researchers analyzed the skills for 700 different occupations. They concluded that machines are going to take over roughly 47% of today's jobs. Coincidentally, that works right out to 2 billion. So thank you, Oxford. That was nice. And it's not just the low-level jobs. Sharing economy companies like Uber and Airbnb, they're eliminating middle management jobs. If you think about how a taxi company worked in the past, we had managers in charge of the drivers, in charge of the cars, the repair work, the logistics. All of that's eliminated with software. So in our quest to create future jobs, all existing industries will be disrupted. There are no safe industries out there. If we look at the fintech world, there's over 8,000 startups in this space trying to break into the financial community. And it's funded by over $12 billion in VC money last year. I like to think of this as the little piranhas trying to take bites out of the giant whale. We don't know how this is going to end up, but it could be death by 1,000 paper cuts, or it could be something else. But we're moving into this driverless car world, and I just wanted to talk just a little bit about this. I wrote a paper recently on 128 things that will disappear in the driverless car era. And so if you can imagine 10 years from now stepping out in front of your house, pulling out your smartphone, punching in, I want to go to work, I want to go to school, I want to go shopping, a car comes and picks you up, takes you to where you want to go. From there, it picks somebody else up and takes them to where they want to go. So these cars are always in circulation. But it transitions us from this just-in-case mindset. I have a car in my garage just in case I need to go somewhere, to a just-in-time mindset. I can summon a vehicle at any time that I need it. That right there is the biggest transition we're going to go through in our entire lives, because it changes everything. Driverless tech is going to be the most disruptive technology in all history. It's going to be more disruptive than the invention of the wheel, the invention of fire, even smartphones, because it will affect more people on a grander scale than any technology in all history. Just to give you some things that are happening in the industry, Hyundai just introduced their autonomous car at CES in January. Volvo is working with Uber, testing 100 self-driving cars in Sweden this year. Ford's doing it in Europe. General Motors wants to test on snow and ice conditions. BMW wants to compete directly with Uber. This is Google's self-driving car company called Waymo. And this is their fully autonomous Chrysler Pacifica hybrid. And Baidu, the search engine company competing with Google over in China, they've got their cars they're testing out. And VW just unveiled Cedric at the Geneva Auto Show. And I think this is closer to what most of the driverless cars are going to look like. They're going to be boxier. They want to make them so that they're easy to get in and out of, unlike traditional cars. So I see this being much more of what we're going to see a lot of in the future. Because if we don't own the car, we don't really care that much about what it looks like. Maybe. We'll see. And Elon Musk says that before the end of this year, we're going to have a car that drives from LA to New York City with no human intervention. So all of this activity is going on in the background. Now, when this starts progressing, and keep in mind this change happens over the next 2 to 3 decades, because we have 260 million cars in the United States, so it takes a long time to transition that out. But all these jobs start disappearing over time. Taxi drivers, Uber drivers. By the way, we have over 1 million Uber drivers in the United States. Delivery jobs, courier jobs, rental cars, all these go away. Taxis gone. Valet jobs gone. Rental car agencies, those are gone. Auto insurance, account managers, credit managers, car licensing and registration. Yeah, even the dealerships start going away. Now we still have the need for maintenance and repair and all that, but it's all a B2B play as opposed to a customer-facing business. Even the crash test dummies go away. I'm really sorry to see these guys go. Now, Volvo has just announced that they're going to be making death-proof cars by 2020. Now, as we baby step our way into the driverless car era, we'll be adding more collision avoidance systems to them. And whether or not they make it to an actual death-proof car by 2020, I certainly applaud their efforts. So gas stations, car washes, oil change places all go away, detail shops. Over 10% of all retail starts to disappear because it's related to driverless cars. Again, we need these services, but it'll be a B2B place, so we won't have customer-facing businesses as a result. Gas stations go away. Most of these will be electric cars. Oil change places, emissions testing. Parking lots go away. 14% of Los Angeles is parking lots. That's a big deal. Parking tickets, parking meters, all these things start to disappear. Roadside assistance, tow trucks, auto parts stores, gone. Tow trucks. Yeah, all these mom and pop jobs, the traffic jams, can't wait for that to go away. Now, I'll just mention a few other things here. Now, 76% of all cars on the road are one person in the vehicle. And since the people that will own most of these cars in the future will be fleet owners, these fleet owners will have huge influence on how cars are designed. So to save money, they will probably be designing one-person vehicles. Now, if you need a larger vehicle, you can summon that, but most likely we'll have a lot of one-person vehicles. And since parking lots go away, we will develop what I call queuing stations in front of the buildings. And so these cars will queue up in front of them. Now, these queuing stations, I think, become very sophisticated over time, that we have a lane specifically for handicapped vehicles, a lane specifically for moms with young kids, and then maybe your Lexus lane for best customers, that sort of thing. I believe electric cars will dominate this. Elon Musk says that we'll have a 700 mile per charge car by 2020, and by 2025 we should have over 1,000 miles per car. So this is where it might raise some eyebrows here. But when we have cars that are picking up people, and as traffic improves, these cars are operating 24/7, so they're operating 24 hours a day. A car, theoretically, could be putting on as many as 1,000 miles in a day. Now that means that over 10 months, that car will have 300,000 miles on it. And that's cars ready to be thrown away then, 300,000 miles. So we'll go through cars quickly. One autonomous car is going to replace 30 traditional cars. And then less than 4 million autonomous cars will replace 50% of commuter traffic. We calculated it out here in the Denver area. Roughly 30,000 cars, well positioned, will replace 50% of commuter traffic in the Denver area. That's all it takes. That's a lot. When you start thinking about airports, 41% of the revenue streams for the average airport come from parking and transportation services. All of that starts going away. All of the parking revenue, the rental cars, the buses, valet services, chauffeurs. Airports look vastly different. If somebody can figure out what to do with all those giant parking lots at DIA, that's they'll hand you the keys to the kingdom there. So. And we have lots of consequences from distracted driving. In 2015, 38,000 deaths, 4.4 million injuries. And when you look at all this and total up the numbers, it's right at $500 billion that will get sucked out of the healthcare industry. And nobody's sorry to see that go, because we got to stop repairing people for all these stupid accidents that we don't have to have. $500 billion. Now, the healthcare industry is a big industry, but you suck $500 billion out of any industry, and that's going to hurt. So 40% of sales tax comes from car sales. That's a huge chunk. Over 10% of retail businesses will disappear. We get rid of traffic cops, traffic courts. Traffic violations account for up to 30% of city revenues. A lot of cities keep pushing cops to write more tickets so they make more money. All of that goes away. And here's the killer statistic here. Okay. New York City brought in $1.9 billion in 2015 from traffic violations. $1.9 billion. That goes away. It couldn't happen to a better group there. So cities themselves will lose over 50% of their revenue. So 80%, roughly 80% of police departments today are set up for traffic control. All of that starts to disappear. So cities start to shrink down, at least in that area. They will have to replace the revenue somehow. We haven't had those discussions. Lots of changes coming in the future. So teenagers are going to be some of the early adopters. The parents want them to go with the driverless car so they won't get in trouble. But things go wrong. I mean, with teenagers, how can anything go wrong? At what age can a child travel by themselves in a driverless car? We haven't had these discussions. If we create a car that recognizes a parent on one end and a teacher on the other end, can we put a 6-year-old in a car, and for how long? Because things go wrong. Kid has to go to the bathroom. We end up with lots of problems. Driverless cars are going to be cheaper than school buses. It'll probably increase the likelihood they'll be in school. But what about tornadoes, earthquakes? What if this car is only 10 minutes out and it gets in a hailstorm? All kinds of things can go wrong. Will they increase or decrease truancy? Lots of discussions that we have to have in the very near future. And then to complicate things even more, the CEO of Airbus says that he will have drone taxis ready for sale this year. That's you get into a drone taxi, there's no pilot, you punch in where you want to go and it'll take you there. Does this mean we have to put little heliports in cities? Maybe. We've got to work our way through that too. This is what an intersection looks like in a driverless car era. It's kind of the way they drive in India right now, but a lot of countries actually. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So every year I go to the Consumer Electronics Show, and they always have lots of TVs on display, and every year the TVs are a little brighter, a little bigger, a little thinner, better battery life, more downloadable apps. And so I use this phrase quite a bit. If you compare TVs to what they were last year, you don't see much change. If you compare them to 15 years ago, you see a lot of change. So I talk about how the iterators are usually more valuable than the innovators. See, when somebody is the chief innovator, they innovate, they create some brand new technology never seen before. We have to work our way through the crappy stages before we get to something that's really good. And so, as an example, we've had to work our way through lots of years of crappy VR. A friend of mine just says, "Yeah, we're finally virtual is finally becoming reality now." So it's a good thing. Now, as technologies are shifting from physical to digital, they're starting to take on this exponential growth curve. And this idea of scalability is a key thing with most technologies. With solar industry, solar only provides a very small amount of all the power in the world right now, only 2%. But it's been shown to be reliably doubling every 2 years. And so if solar continues to reliably double every 2 years, that means that within less than 10 years, it will be the dominant form of power in the world. So we're going from physical to digital. Physical cars to digital cars, physical homes to smart homes, physical cities to smart cities. Innovation's being parsed into far smaller pieces. That enables more people to participate. So we're entering a world defined by scalability. See, it took right around 200 years for us to create the first billion bicycles, 2003. And I know there is a guy out there counting every one of them, too. It took a little over 100 years, probably 120 years to reach the first billion cars in the world, right at 2010. McDonald's, it took them 23 years to reach the first billion hamburgers. Facebook, it took them 8.5 years to reach the first billion users. Uber, 5.5 years to solve the first billion rides. And Uber has a competitor in China called Didi Chuxing. It took them less than 11 months to sell 1 billion rides in China. But that's not the record, though. The record is actually held by this guy here. This is Psy, this crazy dude in South Korea, with his Gangnam Style video in 2012. It took him 157 days to reach the first billion views on YouTube. And since he broke through the billion view record, and he still holds the record for the most views on YouTube, since he did that, there's been another 27 YouTube stars that have climbed up and broken through that barrier. And the one that did it in the least amount of time was Adele, doing it in just 87 days. What this means is that if you're in business, you have the potential to have a competitor blindside you, coming out of the woodwork, and they will suddenly have 10 million customers, 50 million customers, and you don't even know about them because they didn't exist 2 weeks ago. That's the potential that we're running into right now. So on one hand, we're causing a lot of jobs to go away. On the other hand, we're freeing up human capital. But just because all the jobs disappear doesn't mean we're running out of work to do in the world. I mean, have you looked around to tell me that there's no work left to do in the world? But is there a job lined up to do the work that needs to be done? That's a whole other issue. So we're going to have lots of gaps, but there's plenty of work to be done. So one common fallacy is that machines are replacing people. The reality is machines don't work without humans. A more accurate description is a large number of people are being replaced by a smaller number of people using machines. We can now think faster, know faster, and do faster than ever before in history. So where's our next generation jobs going to come from? They're going to come from future industries. So I talk about the Disruptive 8. I talk a little bit about driverless technologies, the sensor technology, Internet of Things, 3D printing. All of these are part of the Disruptive 8. And there's probably some other ones out there. Quantum computing, that's probably a little bit later behind the curve, and some other ones as well. If we look at the sensor movement, 3 years ago, Janice Burzik, one of the vice presidents of Fairchild Semiconductor, decided to hold the Trillion Sensor Summit. And they brought people in to decide, when are we going to reach the first trillion sensors in the world? And they concluded that we're going to reach the first trillion sensors somewhere between 2022 and 2024. And then by 2036, we actually reach 100 trillion sensors. So if you start thinking about how we embed sensors and things, sensors become very tiny, very ubiquitous, very easy to mass produce, very inexpensive. And so we start embedding sensors in everything. We put it in paint. We paint our walls with sensors. We paint our sides of our buildings, our cars, our bridges with sensors. We put it in our clothing. This is a little skin patch here. It looks like a simple Band-Aid, but it's a very sophisticated piece of technology with lots of information coming and going. The average smartphone today has right at 20 sensors in it. When the iPhone first came out, it had 5 sensors in it. So the number of sensors in smartphones is doubling every 4 years. The Internet of Things is all about devices, talking trash about other devices, spreading rumors and lies about other devices. So it's a pretty scandalous environment, actually. The idea of the Internet of Things first came about with Cisco realizing that somewhere between 2008 and 2009 that the number of devices connected to the Internet started to exceed the number of people on Earth. 6.8 billion devices. And so now the projections are that we could hit as many as 50 billion by 2020, but it all depends on how you define these devices. There's this category of Internet of Things devices called enchanted objects, and they're kind of fun, so I thought I would mention a couple of them. The Amazon trash can is kind of cool. You throw a product away, it scans the product, it reorders it from Amazon. Amazon really likes this product. At CES in January, I saw these smart jeans that they were selling. So it's kind of interesting how these work. When you're walking down a sidewalk, if you're supposed to turn right, it'll buzz on the right side. It's supposed to turn left and buzz on the left side. So essentially, you have GPS in your pants. They have smart hair brushes. As you brush it through your hair, it actually listens to the sound that the hair makes going through the bristles, and it can tell if you have split ends or cracked hair, and it will recommend shampoos and conditioners for you. And then they made smart bikinis, tell you if you're getting too much sun. This pepper projector is pretty cool. It works as a regular salt and pepper shaker, but it'll look at a plate of food. It'll tell you how much you weigh before you eat that plate of food and how much you're going to weigh afterwards. The biometric coffee maker, this thing's very cool. You get up in the morning, you put your hand on it, it knows exactly how much caffeine should go in your coffee. We think it probably needs a Jack Daniel's switch too, but and this is Pillow.
Someone can help. With his artificial intelligence, Pillow recognizes each and every member of your family and starts caring for them.
Clara, here are your cholesterol pills. I see you're running low. Shall I reorder them for you?
Thank you, Pillow. That'd be great.
Pillow is 100% secure, and his skills and functionalities will grow the more you use him, the more he gets to know you.
Here are your vitamins to go. Enjoy your training session, Liza.
Thank you, Pillow.
Since Pillow's always connected, he can answer all of your health-related questions.
Pillow, how many calories are in a celery stick?
6 calories, Clara. Celery is excellent for your health.
Great, I'll have a bunch then.
Aww.
Don't you just want to fall in love with your pill machine? So the IC Pooch, this is a device where you can remotely feed your pet from the office, and then you can FaceTime them. So if you have pets at home and you're not FaceTiming them from the office, well then shame on you. And I especially love this one here. This is a little VR unit for chickens. And it begs the question, if the chicken thinks it's a free-range chicken, is it? No help there, no. All right, 3D printing. So when I was at CES a couple years ago, they had me sit down and they scanned the inside of my ears. And then they proceeded to 3D print earbuds that perfectly fitted my ears. Now, this doesn't look like much, but these are the most comfortable earbuds I own. When I was over in Korea a few months back, they set me in this photo booth here, 100 high-res cameras. They told me to pose. They took my picture, and then they proceeded to 3D print a little statue of me about 8 inches tall. So we're rapidly shifting from doing selfies to doing shapies. I mean, who doesn't want their own statue? I mean, this is the guy, Charles Hall, that invented the whole 3D printing world. When he first started in the early 1980s, he could print in plastics and resins. Now we're actually printing in thousands of different materials, including things like used coffee grounds, cork, macadamia nut shells, even wood fibers to create stuff that looks like wood. Disney has figured out how to 3D print with wool so they can print entire teddy bears. So in the future, let's say 10 years from now, you step into a retail clothing store, the first thing you'll do is you step into a body scanner. It'll scan your entire body, and while you're getting your dimensions, you pick out whatever styles, colors, and fashions you're interested in, and it will 3D print your clothes while you're waiting. So this is 3D printed dresses, and we can print far more complicated fashions than ever before. Even the real soft garments now, they can actually 3D print those as well. This is a young Israeli fashion designer. Actually printed all these fashions, did a first fashion show.
Just
And it's not just our clothes, it's also our shoes. So I don't know anybody that doesn't have problems with their feet, but being able to get your feet scanned in and print a shoe that fits perfect every time, I know I would love that. There's a lot of shoe printers out there. They're not quite ready for prime time just yet, but they're getting close. But you can design something that matches your personality. You get to pick out whatever colors and styles you want, and so it's pretty cool. Contour crafting is a form of 3D printing, only it's printing buildings. This just came out like last week. Now, as I understand, this is a company that has offices in Silicon Valley and in Russia. And so they 3D printed this house in Russia. Under $10,000 is about a 400 square foot house. Now, a couple of years ago, this Chinese company called Winsun surprised the world by 3D printing 10 houses in one day. But they had to be assembled. This one in Russia actually printed everything in one day, and it was right on site where it was going to be. So this is the CEO of that. And then they came along and they 3D printed this 11,000 square foot mansion, and then also this 4-story building here. Dubai didn't want to get left out, so they printed this office building, which isn't being used. It's more of a showcase there in Dubai. Dubai is planning on 3D printing 30% of their buildings by 2030, a significant amount. This was 3D printed in 3.5 hours. This is designed to survive an 8.0 earthquake. But this is what people are thinking. Set up on a site, you have this rig that 3D prints the entire structure. Only it's not just the structure. As the technology improves, we're not just printing the walls, we're also printing the wiring in the walls, the plumbing in the walls. We're printing the cabinets in the kitchen, the toilets, the sinks, even the insulation in the walls, the roof, and everything. So if you get tired of your house in the future, you just grind it up and reprint it. I mean, you don't even have to clean it first. You just, if your wife gets mad at you, you might come home to an entire new house. And then to mix it up a little bit more, Siemens Corporation over in Germany is working on 3D printing spider bots. Now, the way these work is that these spider bots will walk over into a vat of concrete, as an example. They'll fill up their legs, and they'll go over and climb up a wall and put that in place, and then they'll go down and get some more and come back and put that in place. Only it's not just one spider bot doing it. It's 150, 200 spider bots working 24/7 to create really big structures. See, once we're able to 3D print our walls, we no longer need flat walls. Every wall can become an artistic centerpiece. The architects are going to go crazy with this because they can create these free-form structures that are impossible to create any other way. And our very definition of what an office is, what a house is, what a condo is, all of that starts to change as we have all of these additional capabilities. I don't even know what the hell that is. And then we can even get into the really big things. I mean, 3D printing. We're going to see headlines in the near future. This is the first 3D printed post office. This is the first 3D printed hospital. This is the first 3D printed ship or baseball stadium or floating island. And then 3D printing is going off in 1,000 different directions. This guy's printing a vein for surgery. You can actually get your brain scanned and impress your friends, put that on your desk. Lee Cronin thinks that we'll be able to 3D print all of our pharmaceutical drugs. So today a doctor can prescribe 200 milligrams or 400 milligrams. depending on what you need. But you might actually need 137 milligrams or 468 milligrams, but we can't work with that level of precision, not today. Lots of work being done on printing organs. And I like to ask the question, how long will it be before we can I can print a replacement body? I mean, something that's maybe like 18 years old, that's muscular, more hair in his head, better looking, you know. Is this what we're moving into? I think I'll wear the head with the big smile today. It just seems right. Jeff Bezos says if you only know things, only do things where you know the answer in advance, your company will never survive. Virtual reality is going off on 1,000 different directions. There's virtual reality therapy, people that have been in traumatic situations. This guy's skydiving without actually jumping out of a plane. Young kids learning what it's like to walk on the moon or walk on among the dinosaurs or even walk in 5th century China village. I love this one here. It's a fan on the front. This girl's learning how to fly, just how she moves her arms. At the Da Vinci Institute that I run, we have a virtual reality meetup group that meets once a month. They always bring the new gear. It's great fun. William Gibson says the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So lots of stuff happening in the drone world. We all need this on occasion. Amazon announced the first drone delivery December 7th last year.
We have been operating fulfillment centers for quite a while now, but this one is unlike all the rest. These modest-looking buildings contain innovative prime air technology. Here's how it works. Moments after receiving the order, an electrically powered Amazon drone makes its way down an automated track and then rises into the sky with the customer's package on board. These drones are autonomous. From takeoff to landing and return, they operate completely on their own. Cruising quietly below 400 feet, carrying packages up to 5 pounds, and guided by GPS, our systems are designed to find their destinations safely. Within 30 minutes of placing the order, the customer receives their package. For this initial trial, customers can choose.
This is what it's more going to look like. So the first one with the Amazon, that you notice the drone landed in a nice safe area out on the grass, nothing around it. But where is it okay to land at an apartment complex? Where is it okay to drop that package at an office building? If you have dogs in the yard, or if it's raining out or hailing out. I mean, a lot of those questions we haven't resolved yet. And so my thinking is we'll go much more to the ground delivery drones. And I think that most of them will deliver at between 2 or 3 in the morning because they can just drop stuff off real quickly. If it requires somebody be there, that's going to be not very convenient at all. I mean, we could have a Domino's pizza delivery drone that delivers to people because they're waiting for the food, but most people are not waiting for their packages. So the drone world is going to grow rapidly. We'll reach 1 billion by 2030, 2032. And it's going to range all the way from the really big drones that can carry shipping containers. By the way, this company actually thinks they'll be able to move houses with their drones, down to the really tiny pesky drones that we'll have to keep our windows closed in the summer because the pesky drones will fly in. You'll hear people yell, "Hey, honey, can you get my drone swatter? One of those bastards is here again." But keep in mind that drones aren't just flying. Drones also roll along the ground. They also stick to the side of a building. They float in a river. They dive underwater. They jump onto the side of a building. I've seen them jump onto a 2-story building. They can climb a tree. They can attach themselves like parasites to besides the train, ships, and airplanes. Drones are going to have multiple capabilities in the future. And so it'll get real interesting. But I wanted to touch a little bit on the future of education here. I was giving a talk in 2012 over in Istanbul. I was talking a lot about teacherless education over there. And after my talk, one of the executives of Google came up to me and he said, you know, we're really interested in teacherless education because we want to educate Africa, and teachers don't want to go to Africa. And that was a very revealing moment for me because no, teachers don't want to go to Africa. They don't want to go to Siberia, Pakistan. There's lots of countries that teachers don't want to go to. In fact, there's roughly 18 million shortage of teachers right now around the world. 23% of all kids growing up don't get any schooling whatsoever. And so if we have to continue to put teachers in between us and everything we need to learn in the future, we can't possibly keep up. The role of education is changing. It's no longer possible to anticipate the needs of business 4 to 5 years in advance. We're currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist using technology that hasn't been invented to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. Pretty much describes the whole issue here. So the average person entering the workforce will need to reboot their career 6 times when they enter in 2030. That's probably going to be higher than that. It may be 8 to 10 times. And so people who have to shift gears that often will want to do the retraining in the least amount of time. So as an example, when Facebook bought Oculus Rift in 2014, paying $2 billion for it, there was an instant uptick in the demand for virtual reality developers, coders, producers, and nobody is teaching it, certainly not the Oculus Rift version. So bold companies like this are instantly triggering the need for new talent. And so we've come up with this concept of micro colleges. We think it better addresses the needs for people that need to be retrained. So we created this school called Da Vinci Coders. We were the first in Colorado, the second in the country to train coders in a short form training. So I want to show you this quick video here. It starts off with this quote by Ray Bradbury. Isn't that the way you want to get retrained? You just jump off a cliff and learn it on the way down. But micro colleges, I look at as just immersive forms of post-secondary training done in a short period of time. Very simple. We have lots of classes. We have 2 of them going on right now. Our next class in Python will start in April. We still have a couple seats available, so if anybody's interested. But we have a JavaScript class going on and a game development class going on right now. When the students finish up their the course, then we give them all a certificate. We think micro colleges are going to go off in 1,000 different directions, and we're testing out new ideas all the time. So we're going to explore new curriculums, new ideas, whether it's becoming a crowdfunding expert or a dog breeder, drone pilot, or a brewmaster in a brew pub. All these things are going to be options in the future. So then I got a big idea from artificial intelligence. So with artificial intelligence, we're really standing on the brink of this whole big revolution here of things happening. I like to think of it being able to add hot and cold running AI to everything out there. And it all has to do with this convergence, all this technology that has been brewing and festering for decades. It's finally coming to a head. It's finally coming together, and people are figuring out how to make it work. Lots of industries are going to be affected, certainly the driverless cars that I showed you earlier. Joshua Browder is a young 16-year-old kid, figured out a chat bot that would contest your parking tickets, put in 250,000 parking tickets, and was winning 64% of the time. Is that the best use of AI? I think probably so. I think it's probably, I would put it as a winner, yeah. They tried to have it read through all the Harry Potter books and write the next great Harry Potter novel. That was a total disaster, but keep in mind this is early on. They had it listen to all of the Beatles music, and they came up with a new Beatles song. Does that sound like the Beatles? I don't know. I think maybe not, but I know the Beatles aren't getting any royalties off of it, though, so that's an issue.
It's summer sinking, the cattle go down. It's wrapping those wings around.
So here's the key thing. These might not be the greatest songs right now, but 10 years from now, if you have a choice between songs that are created by AI and songs that are created by live musicians, which are you going to choose? The marketplace is going to decide. And keep in mind that an AI song can actually insert references to your family and friend, your personal situations. It can speak to you directly. So the marketplace is going to decide on these things. So Google's company that they bought called DeepMind, it's being used to alert physicians from kidney failures. And just this year alone, they think that by being able to detect these lesions on the kidneys early enough that they're going to prevent 10,000 deaths just in British hospitals this year. Microsoft is viewing the human genome as just another coding language that we're going to be able to reprogram people to better health so that they think we can cure cancer, diabetes, and lots of other things in less than 10 years. And they've hired a huge staff of people to do that. And whether or not they actually accomplish it, I'd say more power to them. But here's my big light bulb moment. So there were a test where they put DeepMind to play this game Breakout. Breakout is just a sophisticated Pong game. And they gave DeepMind very little information other than its goal was to just maximize the score. So after 30 minutes, it was still pretty crappy at playing the game. So this is what it looked like after 30 minutes. And it would lose repeatedly. But then after 2 hours, it managed to master the game at a high rate of speed. So 2 hours, it was learning as it went. It was playing much better. And then after 4 hours, it came up with the optimal strategy to dig a tunnel around the side and serve up the ball in some superhuman fashion. Even the designers of the game didn't know this was possible. I just hate playing video games with people that do this. So they put DeepMind playing 49 other Atari 2600 games. Very minimal background information. It learned how to master everything. Martial arts games to boxing, 3D car racing. So it occurred to me, and this is my light bulb moment, that if we apply AI to teacher bots, the new game will be find the fastest way to teach students. Over time, AI will learn every student's proclivities, their idiosyncrasies, their preferred tools, their personal reference points, and how to keep them engaged and learning even in the face of lots of distractions. And we live in a very distractive world right now. So it will know what skills we're deficient in and what's needed to bring us up to speed and how and when to schedule our training and when we've mastered the topic. It'll know when things are clicking, when things are not clicking, and it'll know when we've mastered the topic. So it's very cool. So throughout this training curve, individual training will begin to scale much faster. And so we will be able to learn things maybe 2 times faster, 4 times faster, maybe even 10 times faster. Maybe. We don't know. We haven't tried it yet. But I'd love to give it a shot. So as I like to say, we shape the future, and then our future shapes us. I'll leave you with a couple predictions here, that the next major league sport is going to be video games. So in South Korea, they have over 100,000 people that show up for these tournaments. They have $1 million prizes. And here's the funny thing, is that there's a lot of rumors about video games being added as an Olympic sport. And naturally, that brings up the question of, well, should it be a winter sport or a summer sport? And since South Korea has the next winter sports, I said, you guys should really just go with it. So we'll see if they do. Our most valuable land in the future is going to be our landfills, because that's where we bury all of our most valuable resources. So I'm predicting that somebody's going to invent robotic earthworms that go in there and mine all this out and replace it with good soil. The world's first trillionaire is going to come from the cryptocurrency movement. So when Bitcoin came out, it was open source. So anybody that wanted to could copy it and create their own cryptocurrency. And a lot of people did. So there's over 3,300 of them in existence. So Bitcoin has suddenly become a safe haven currency. It's more valuable than gold now. So there's 77 cryptocurrencies that now have a market cap over $1 million. This one called Dash just moved up into the 4th category, worth over $200 million market cap. Driverless cars are going to change transportation more dramatically than the invention of the automobile itself. So by 2030, the average person will own printed clothing, live in a printed house, have packages delivered by drones, own more than one robot, work as a freelancer, frequently use driverless cars, and be capable of accomplishing 10 times what the average person today can. So we're entering a period of unprecedented opportunity. So why is this so important? It's because over the next 20 years, humanity is going to change more than in all human history. But at the same time, risk factors are going to increase. As we get more dependent on technology, more things can go wrong. And our children's children who haven't even been born yet are counting on you. They're counting on the people in this room to make great decisions. As Steve Jobs says, right now is one of those moments when you are influencing the future. But even with that, sometimes our best efforts just look a lot like this. Yep, just like that. So my new book, Epiphany Z, is out here. If anybody wants a copy, it's $20, and the money goes to our scholarship fund at the Da Vinci Institute, so it's not for me. I'm also on April 10th, I'm going to be teaching a class called Inside the Mind of a Futurist. So we're going to be teaching lots of different techniques on how to think like a futurist and how to use these different methodologies to stretch your thinking about the future. So if anybody want more information about what we do at the Da Vinci Institute, just sign up for our newsletter. And I thank you very much for having me here tonight. Thank you.